scenes that possibly we couldn't have tackled or captured faithfully before, I can get more out of this camera. My money goes further. It's as simple as that from a business standpoint. From a creative point of view, it's unquestionably unlocking more creative avenues for us as filmmakers.
XS Wireless Digital is the perfect wireless audio solution for content creators and filmmakers. Thanks to a 2.4 GHz transmission, XS Wireless Digital is a truly plug-and-play system that allows you to upgrade your in-camera audio with one-button operation. With a variety of configurations to choose from, this entry point into the world of wireless will improve your workflow and will expand the possibilities of how you capture audio for your video. For more information, visit sennheiser.com/xswd. The MKE600 is a shotgun microphone ideal for professional video camera applications. Maximal rejection of ambient side noises thanks to pronounced directivity. And because the MKE600 has a very good suppression of structure-borne noise, it makes one of the most versatile all-round shotgun microphones on the market.
The new Super 35 sensor that Canon have introduced with the C300 Mark III is quite a big step up.
Okay, welcome to ProAV Live. Thank you all very much for joining us. Very exciting one today. I think this is the biggest audience that we've had before a stream has even started of any of these streams that we've been doing so far, because this has been the launch of the new Sony A7s Mark III, which is a camera that we've all been waiting for such a incredibly long period of time. and it is now here. We know all about it, and I'm going to be joined by Philip Bloom, who has been using the camera for 7 weeks now. So he's going to certainly know far more than I do about it, and hopefully be able to answer all the questions that you may have. If you have placed a pre-order yet, thank you very much. If you haven't and you are interested in the camera, I really, really recommend that you join the pre-order queue. If we just go over to ProAV's website here, I'll show you the product page where you can pre-order the camera. Sony have also got a couple of little offers going on as well. So Dan, can you bring up the laptop for me? Oh, it can't. Technical problems already with the laptop. Okay, no problem. But if you guys just go to proav.co.uk, you can see A7s III all over the website. And there's a couple of really important pre-order deals going on at the moment. So they are actually giving you £300 off Sony G Master lenses, up to the amount of 3 lenses. So if you buy 3 lenses, you get £900 off your lenses, which is a pretty incredible pre-order deal. And so that all the details of that are up on our website as to how you can redeem that, etc. So please do talk to our sales team or just head over to the website to do that, because I really do recommend you join a pre-order queue for the camera if you're wanting to get the camera, because this is going to be a very in-demand camera. It really is. But thank you all so much for the chat. By the way, before I introduce Phil, the chat on YouTube and the Facebook comments we can see, and so just leave your comments there as we go through, and we will bring them up as questions. We've got no plan here. We've got no formal thing that we're going to go through. We're just purely going to go off what you guys want to know. So please do keep that, all the questions coming in the chat. I can see lots of them coming in. People from Australia, Hong Kong, Crete, amazing. So let's get straight to it. I'm joined by filmmaker Philip Bloom once again. Hello, Phil. How are you doing?
It's been a while since we did one.
It has been a while. It's been about a month, I think.
At least that. Was that a launch of a camera? Because we don't tend to get many launches of cameras, do we?
Actually, no, there's been barely any launches recently.
Hang on, the camera's just been launched. Oh, another one's just been launched. Oh, just getting another camera's just been launched. Oh, A7s
You joke, Phil.
just been launched.
But we've got a Blackmagic announcement at 5 o'clock today, so I don't think it's a camera, but
that 12K just ain't going to cut it for me.
It's a 16K pocket.
Is it going to be a camera?
I don't think it's going to be a camera.
We've
got enough cameras going on at the moment.
The only thing they're missing is a full frame pocket. That's what they need.
Oh, I think I will need to have a few days off for stress if they release another camera, to be quite honest. There's been so much going on at the moment. And I'm sure you're in the same boat over there. How's the review and everything coming on? You imagine you're working away something rotten, are you?
Yeah, I'm going on holiday tomorrow, and so it obviously needs to be finished today. And like, I've been literally working 21, 22-hour days to get it done.
Blimey.
So the FX9 review, which was 2 hours long, took me 5 weeks to edit. And because I made these 2 videos for Sony, that was my priority. So I only started editing the review on Saturday.
Cool.
So hang on, I've just lost my earpiece thing. It's come back in there. So that's, you can imagine I'm trying to squeeze this. It needs to be quality. That's why I didn't put anything out Tuesday. It needs to be quality wise, because it's there forever. Well, as long as we exist, and YouTube exists, so it needs to stand a test of time, which is fine. I think it's almost there, and it covers everything to do with the video side as much as you possibly would need.
No, I'm very much looking forward to watching it. How long did you have the camera? Dan, can we make Philip louder, please?
I had it.
Thank you, everyone in the chat.
I got it in October last year, I think. Joking. No, I had it seven and a bit weeks. Had it 7 and a bit weeks, and then had to give it back for a couple of days, which was painful. And I got it back yesterday. It was annoying because I had to give it back at the most crucial time. It was when I was doing all the settings in the review, and I was like, "Oh, I need to check something. Is this because when you're recording the menus on an Atomos, what often happens is it stops recording when you're changing a setting, but it doesn't show you. It's still got the red around it, and you think you've got it. So I ended up with all these little short clips. I mean, right now, because I have the camera still, I've got it back, because I've got it plugged into the A10 Mini Pro. If I switch to it and we change anything, the A10 Mini Pro will automatically just deal with it. So that's what I should have done.
Which is brilliant.
And that's what I'm going to do is just have a box which is going to just make everything even. But it's the thing is, it's a complicated camera.
Record trigger stuff, right?
If the camera was easy, it is an easy camera, but if the camera didn't have much going on, then it would be an easier review to make. Because so much has changed and so much of it is worth talking about, you don't really want to miss it. It's like they really have changed. The only thing they haven't changed is the lens mount, pretty much. And that's about it, really. And of course, we used to a couple of things like the new batteries, but certainly if you look at it compared to the A7s II, it is just the lens mount, and that is it.
I mean, how many cameras do you think were released in between the A7s Mark II and the A7s Mark III? I mean, there was a lot.
In 5 years, a fair amount. Sony have released the same quality video in their mirrorless cameras every single time, and that's what's been so frustrating. Is that every body that whether it's a small RX100 through to an A9 or A7R, they're all the same 4K 30p 8 bits. So we had improvements in the 1080p slow motion and stuff like that. And of course the autofocus was a big improvement, but the video image itself, no, it's been the same. This is the first change in quality since the A7, which was I think the A7R, which was the first one with 4K internal. It was either the A7R2 or the A7s II.
I think it was the A7s II.
Okay.
And that was a step forward. It was so now what you could do externally, you can now do internally. This isn't a step forward, is it? This is just a leap forward. it's I mean, really quite incredible how many stuff they've packed into this camera.
This is an incredibly high-featured video camera.
Yeah.
And it's like when I've read some comments, people saying it's very expensive. I'm like, is it? You look at what this camera does as a full frame video camera, and you show me what other camera does this, and at this price. There doesn't exist one. We currently have a lot of people. I was talking to Alistair Chapman yesterday, who was at the Sony webinar that I did, and he was like, he was going, God, loads of us FX9 guys are like, oh God, because it does many things that the FX9 doesn't do. The FX9 does other things better, but this has a much higher spec in the actual the actual high frame rates, and it's got the same bit rate and pretty much the same codec as the FX9 in the XAVC-I.
That's something that we need to try and figure out, isn't it? Is the different? What's the difference between XAVC-SI and XAVC-I?
I know exactly what it is. It's very simple. XAVC-I is limited to 4K 60p. And that's
particular bit rate.
I mean, I think XAVC-SI, it's the same bit rate, exactly the same bit rate. I think it's just a more modern codec that they can push higher. It doesn't record 100p, this one. It does as the overcrank, 100p and 120p. But I think that's pretty much what it is. All the codecs are very interesting. My advice would always be, if you have the cards, is to shoot an XAVC-SI for the very simple reason you can edit it natively easily within like Premiere, whereas the others are a pain, especially HS, which is the H.265 one. Everybody knows editing H.265 is a massive pain, and for some bizarre reason there's no 25p for that, which I don't know why, but but I've actually shot a lot in just the plain old XAVC-S 10-bit 422, which is 140, I believe, megabits a second.
So the long got version, but the full bit rate.
So it It's great. The only time you really suffer with that sort of thing is if you're trying to, do some slow things down. I had no issues with. I shot a lot of my stuff in that mode, and lots of tests in it, and it grades beautifully. I just find that I have to convert it to ProRes because I'm always having multiple layers, and the computers just hate long GOP.
Oh, have we lost Phil? I think we've lost Phil on
frame
the
codecs, but
Skype.
but as
he's back.
H.265.
Sorry, we lost you there for a sec,
I
Phil.
think that's all right. We have, I think the Fuji, for example, has an all-I mode at 400 megabits a second, but it's in HEVC. So it's like, great, it's all-I, but I have to convert it. Great. So you got a high-quality recording, but you still need to then convert it. Whereas this is a high-quality recording that you can just. For me, it's important to everybody really, data rates and whether you have to go to transcoding or not. That's one of the best things about the FX9 for me, is I can just edit that footage natively. It's like butter. And this is
it
like
speeds
butter.
up the workflow so much, being able to edit natively.
Yeah. And
so let's start by watching your Now I See film, because I think that is a really good place to start, just for people to get used to that. But after we do that, we'll jump straight into questions. So keep the questions coming in the chat. There's some great comments going on in the chat. Vilken likes your shirt, Phil. Nick says that you win the Bokeh Wars. It's looking dreamy over there.
Hang on. I need to give you some more Tone. Hang on. How's this working for you?
There we go.
Is this good Tone for you?
Making me look inadequate over here.
This is better now, isn't it? We're getting focused. And we're good. We're getting focused.
Rhapsodist says that we need to let you go on your holiday finally. So let's start by playing the Now I See, and we will join back for some actual questions and answers. Brilliant stuff, Phil. So
Thank you.
I think Taz in the chat there has just summed that up brilliantly. This video alone makes me want to buy the camera. Stunning work.
Yeah, it's definitely worth watching.
I honestly really like that film.
Thank you. I mean, it's worth watching on Vimeo, and worth downloading it. It's an HEVC 10-bit upload, so you'll see it properly, which is obviously important because YouTube doesn't do it any favors, and of course rebroadcasting it isn't ideal either. But yeah, so I can tell you a little bit about it if you want, Carl. The 6 years ago, I went to this beach. 6 years ago on 9th of July, so 2014, I went to Brighton Beach. I saw the launch video. I was like, that's cool. It was loads of fishing in Scotland, higher ISOs. I'm like, yeah, but what did it look like? What did the actual light look like to us? And that's what I wanted to show in that original video of Now I See. And then on the 9th of July 2020, exactly 6 years to the day, I went back. Sony hired me to make a launch video, and I pitched the idea is going back there, because what the gimmick of the first one was the hard switching of nighttime to day. What I wanted to show you, because this camera is an incredibly good camera, not just in low light, but in normal light, I have my hard cuts where I literally go from day to night. Yeah. There's no point repeating the same gimmick. We know that it does that. So what I wanted to show here was something more, and have this non-linear narrative of match cuts, which are relatively tricky to get perfect. But there's ways of you've got to do it. You've got to shoot it right. And so I was like there was physical places which not in the middle of the beach, but you could find, and you just take you take photos of it and you just match it up as much as possible. And make sure there's nothing in the foreground that can screw things up too much, and make sure that you have something as a reference in the background that you can use as your match. And then there's bits of luck, like the seagull, which is my favorite shot, that match cut.
Yeah.
That was pure luck. I like lower, that sort of framing down the bottom rightish anyway. And I had a couple of shots and I was like, great. And then as I shot so much stuff, and as I was going through, I put that shot down, and then as I went through a bit more, I went, oh my god, he gets attacked by another goal, and that's going in. There's probably loads of other stuff, even better shots, I just didn't have time to go through. It's because when you're filming something like this, you're always seeing stuff, and especially when you're shooting high frame rate, it's like going through it is like, ugh, my own fault for shooting high frame rate stuff. Yeah. So that's one of the key things. I could have shot it. I did two videos. So I did this and the paddleboarder, which is mostly 25p with natural sound. So if people complain, oh, it's too much slow motion, well, go and watch the paddleboarder video, because that is what you want. So you have both things. But
was that on all slow motion, or was there any real time in that?
Yeah, no, there was all the daytime was slow motion, and half the nighttime was real time. Because what I really wanted to show was with the high ISO capability, and obviously the camera's ability to shoot slow motion, you could shoot at night. So there's the shots under the street lights of the people walking. That's 100 frames per second. At 200th of a second, I did not expect to get away with that. I thought it's going to A, look terrible because of noise, and B, flicker like crazy. It didn't. It didn't flicker at all. The only noise that it was very pleasant, because very frequently when you go to high frame rates, you add noise. It doesn't happen with this camera. The only time it does in 200 and 240 HD if you underexpose, but if you give it enough light, that's what tends to happen with high frame rates. You've got to make sure you always give it enough light, because that's where it falls apart when you don't give it enough light.
Were you using S&Q mode, or were you using the just normal recording but at 100p?
So I did a few shots with S&Q mode as tests just for the review, but knowing the data rate, knowing that I still got them. I've only got two of the little cards, the CF Express A cards, and they're not big capacity. No, that's going to go in focus. It's
too small for the focus.
But yeah, it'll go in focus. It's here. There we go. There we go. There it is. And so and also the quality difference is, I can't tell. I literally couldn't tell. And the benefit of not shooting S&Q mode is you get sound, which is great. Yeah, and
well, it's good that they're so close that you couldn't tell, actually, because on the old cameras you used to be able to tell. You used to get significantly better image quality by not using the S&Q mode. So I think that's quite a good thing, actually, because a lot of people don't want to interpret the footage and remember which ones are 100p and all the rest of it in post-production. They just want it to come out in slow motion without audio. So for a lot of people, that would be brilliant.
Yeah, I mean,
right, let's crack on.
Was all shot in 50p because I wanted the choice. I wanted the choice of normal speed and slow motion. So there's like maybe 4 or 5 shots in that video which are slow motion. Downside is you get the motion blur isn't as perfect as you want, but it gave me the options. And there's moments where you just want it to just be a bit slower. So it's the slow motion in that is so subtle you'll barely notice it apart from the end shot. So there we go. Anyway, the itself opened up so much for me about the camera because I'd spent maybe 5 weeks shooting lots of different bits with it to understand it, and to feel comfortable enough to take on something. I'm making a video for Sony Europe for their launch of it. It kind of needs to be good. It's not just me putting up my own first video. I had to make it good because they paid me to make that. To be fair, they could have loaned me the camera. I still probably would have made it for free. But
don't tell them that.
Well, that's what I do. Most of the stuff I do with new cameras, I don't get paid for it. You can't really. So, I mean, like my review is not paid by Sony. They paid me to make those videos, but my review is my review.
Yeah, your review is the same as all the normal camera reviews you do. I think that's quite an important point to clarify, isn't it? There's a difference between working with a manufacturer on the launch and doing full-on paid reviews.
You'll see, I will cover everything good and bad in the camera because there is stuff which isn't great.
Yeah, of course, as there is with every camera. So, some questions. Stephen Karras is saying, hi, Philip and ProAV, wondering how the colour compares to the FX9. Does it have that Venice-like colour rendition? Now, this is the big old thing here, isn't it? We know that the specs are so much better than previous A7 cameras, but is the colour better?
So, there is no specific profile like we have an S-Cine. There's no sRGB. But if you shoot in S-Log3, S-Gamut 3 Cine, oh God, stupid, these names. You drop on a Venice LUT, bang. I shot a corporate, my first shoot after, in ages, in June, and I used the A7s III as the B camera to the FX9. Perfect match. The paddle border was using Alistair Chapman's Venice LUTs, and actually used a couple of them. Have a look at the video, people, and you'll see because one of his LUTs has a green remover, which I used because the opening section of that video is under trees, and Julian's got quite a little bit green skin, which is natural, and I wanted it, but
you didn't want to. Yeah.
I was told. Somebody mentioned that he was worried that people will go, look, Sony have green skin tones. And I'm like,
well, that's actually our next question
again
from Stephen. Says it all looks very cinematic, but some of the skin tone heavy fashion DP work he does, he's wondering how the skin rendition compares to something like, say, Canon's cameras with the C300 there. I mean, if you're shooting under trees like you just described, you will always get a skin tone cast. That's just
you'll get. There is no the color of skin is great. There's nothing bad about it. It's like the image, the skin tones you'll get will be pretty much equivalent to an FX9. The only thing you don't get is a nice standard profile like the Cinetone, which would be lovely to have. I'd be, just for your general shooting, would be lovely to actually just have that. But there isn't that. I've asked. Everybody's asking. They do have these new normal profiles outside of picture profiles, which there's no point. You're going to shoot. If you're going to shoot with this camera and you want the best dynamic range, you shoot an S-Log3, S-Gamma 3 Cine, because that gives you your full dynamic range. Whereas the other ones they require less work in post potentially, but you will lose dynamic range. But the skin tones look great, yeah.
Steve is asking, do you think you can actually replicate Cinetone S in the profiles? And I'm sure this will be something that people will do. They'll select that particular, I don't know, Cine 2 or whatever, and they'll tweak it until it looks close enough to Cinetone. I'm sure somebody's going to do that at some point, right?
Yeah, I'm sure it's possible. I mean, you can't load in LUTs into the camera, which would be a good way of doing it. But I mean, if you head over to Extra Shots YouTube channels, which is Paul Ream, who he's used to be head cameraman at Sky. He's the guy who made me redundant 24 years ago.
Did he really?
I've forgiven him. Anyway, he's got a video about how it shows you how to dial in S-Cinetone into an A7s III, and it's actually pretty good. So somebody it won't be the same. And I'm sure once you try and you have them side by side and you're trying to get it's the skin tones will show the most differences. Yeah. But yeah, it would be nice to be able to do it. But at the end of the day, yes, you can get it to look like that just by shooting an S-Log3. And because it's 10-bit, we can shoot S-Log3 now.
So we're getting some questions about the ProRes RAW side of things with Atomos. Jeremy is saying, when you tested ProRes RAW recording onto the Ninja 5, was it possible to record 16-bit actually on the Atomos?
So the Atomos, as far as I know, please correct me if I'm wrong, the only RAW they record these days is ProRes RAW, isn't it? Yep. I think. Yep, and that is 12-bit. So that's it. So they used to, in the old days, record Cinema D&G, but they don't do that anymore. It's ProRes RAW, which is maxed at 12-bit. I do not know whether there is some clever 16-bit to 12-bit or whether it's just I have absolutely no idea. The version that I used anyway was like one of the very first betas. So it worked. It froze a few times. It wasn't quite filling the whole frame. There's just a few glitches, but it was because it was a beta version, but it was easily good enough to shoot with. It did raise some interesting questions for me because it was coming up as 4.2K. And I was like, why is it 4.2K? And then, of course, if you look at the actual resolution of the sensor, it reminds you that although people are often saying they're sampling 1:1 on this camera, but they're not. They're not sampling 1:1 because the sensor is not 3840 wide. It's 42 something. So there is a small amount of down sampling there. They're not cropping. Whereas some of the older A7, I think the A7s II had a slight crop in 4K. Maybe not, I can't remember. Anyway, so there is a slight downsampling going on there. And the Atomos, even though because it was beta, so it's like, even though it was recording 4.2K, for some reason it was giving me a slightly less field of view. And I was like, the mathematics do not add up there. How can it have more pixels, yet be showing less? So, but it's all going to be perfect and match when it comes out, whenever it comes out. But there's definitely advantages to the ProRes RAW, but there's also definitely advantages to recording internally. In fact, because it's internal, the internal codec, even the basic ones are quite good. But as I say, the I codec is great. If you just want more flexibility, and ProRes RAW is opening up now, so we have software called Scratch from a company called Assimilate, which gives you the proper RAW controls that we've been missing in Final Cut and Premiere. Premiere is the worst with ProRes RAW. It's just an exposure slider, and that's it. So Scratch gives you 3 controls. It gives you your ISO, your white balance, and your tint. So we have some proper controls.
Which is about time. I think Scratch is quite an expensive piece of software still, though, isn't it?
It's free. It's free right now. It's free right now, month by month, but then it won't be free.
It won't be again.
We
really need is Resolve
to open up.
And we need support and Resolve. I think they will have to at some point. I think they will have to because Resolve is not just a Blackmagic tool for Blackmagic cameras. It is a pro grading tool that is, you know, lots and lots of very professional high-end colorists use Resolve day to day, and they need to be able to just edit and color whatever is sent to them by their client. Otherwise they will kick up, believe me, the biggest fuss.
But you've seen the way that Resolve handles different types of RAW. The only time it gives you the full control of RAW now is in B-RAW, which is like, oh, great. Well, where's the RAW?
And I'm sure they will do something like that. I'm sure they will do something like that. But hopefully, at least they will give us support to bring it in, to grade it, to play it back. You know. Hopefully, I'm still holding a hope. I know there's lots of conflict of interest there, and it's possible that they will sort of, the business will defeat the consumer sense, but I'm still holding out hope.
I mean, the workflow that I was using, which I was using Final Cut Pro 10, because it's got a key thing which makes it easier to work with. You simply convert a touch of a button. You convert the ProRes RAW to S-Gamut 3, S-Log 3, S-Gamut 3 Cine, and it's great. So you can work with it as log, which is natural to me. And then you also have the ability to add the LUTs if you want to there to work with it, and that's how I actually work. That's how I edited the other piece using that. Right. Because I find the Premiere handling of it is just horrendous. So. Yeah, it works, but it's just hard work.
Absolutely. So, Blue Garnet Films is asking, what's the bit rate like while outputting that 16-bit RAW? And I assume it's the bit rates of ProRes RAW, because the only thing
it's ProRes RAW, ProRes RAW HQ.
Yeah, and that's the only way that you can record it, because that's Atomos at the moment is the only device that supports it, and therefore you need that to do it. And that's the same with all the other cameras like the A7s III that we've seen that now support ProRes RAW recording over HDMI, which is a very interesting and very specific type of protocol, presumably, and Atomos are the only ones right now that are doing it. And so whether you're using the S1H or this or whatever other camera that you've got that does it, you're limited to ProRes RAW, and the bit rates would all be dictated by the bit rates of ProRes RAW natively.
Yeah, and of course would be affected by the resolution. So if you've got a 5.7K RAW, then that'll be obviously slightly higher. I'm just going to open up one and just see what my inspector says of my clip here. And it says it is 1.27 gigabits a second. This is for 50p.
Okay.
So halve that if you want normal speed.
That's only 600. That's not crazy high bit rates for RAW. That's actually.
So ProRes RAW is the same size. Normal ProRes RAW is the same size as ProRes HQ. Yeah. So it's not crazy.
So, okay, let's talk about overheating. We've got a couple of questions about overheating. We need to bring it up at some point. Now, since the camera's come out, obviously they gave it to a lot of YouTubers and reviewers, lots of whom are in America. And we've seen various things going around where some of them have said, yep, they've seen some overheating. Some of them have just shot all day with it without any overheating at all. Phil, have you seen any overheating at all in your work with it here in Blight?
Carl, I spent 7 days shooting overheating tests. This was my autofocus obsession for this camera, whereas the FX9 was like autofocus. This one's been all about overheating. So I had a heat lamp and set up in the corner and shot every single variety as much as I could to see how long it could go for. I had overheating, I had no overheating, and there's certain modes which will overheat after a certain time. The biggest culprit for overheating is the HS mode, the HEVC, because it's more processing. Not in I would say not in 25p, but I don't know, because I didn't do 25p. I did do I think I may have done some 24p, so I need to check that. But it was under a heat lamp at about, what did I get to? It was like 20, it was 85, whatever that is, like 28, something like that, 27, 28 degrees centigrade. I got like 50 minutes and then it turned off at 100 frames. And then I obviously kept trying to turn it on to see the recovery rate. And then after 2 minutes, it let me turn on again, and I got another 20 minutes. So, I mean, that's 100 frames. It's more than enough. I got the lamp a little bit too close at one point, and the rubber started to smoke on one of the lenses. So I lifted it up a bit. And the hottest I got it at, I don't know, because the thermometer couldn't register it anymore. It had gone off the scale. So it was over 120 degrees Fahrenheit. And I recorded 3 hours in XAVC S25p at that, and it just was fine. And I just stopped it. It's like, okay, this is clearly working. And the longest I recorded was for 12 hours continuous. But I've had overheating at certain times, and it does depend on the codec and the ambient temperature. But what I found is the recovery is always quick. And then it, because this is the thing obviously about overheating's become the topic. The EOS R overheats. We know that the R5 and R6, they overheat, and that's we understand that, and I think that is a problem, of course. But one of the biggest problems is just the recovery time is so enormous, and that's you can't do any shooting. Whereas at least with this, it doesn't take long, and you can shoot. And for me to actually shoot in the real world, I'm not going to be shooting a high frame rate clip continuously in heat ever. I will shoot 25p continuously, maybe for interviews and stuff, but not high. That's a B-roll frame rate. So you're doing stopping and starting and stopping and starting, stopping and starting. The only time I ever got a thermometer warning. So if you set it to auto power off temperature high, so that means when a thermometer warning comes on, it doesn't turn off. Whereas if you have it on normal, so it'll keep on going until it's like, okay, you're going to stop now. So it stops. The only time I've never had it while shooting. The only time I had it was just during my tests. So and we had some hot days, and I was shooting a lot. So I've not had any issue. It's in the real world, unless you're filming in Dubai in the summer, you should be fine, to be honest with you.
I mean, we've had some people like Digital Film Reviews has just said not a professional tool if it overheats, and sort of implies it's as simple as that. I mean, it's not really as simple as that, because every single camera, no matter what it is, if it's in a hot enough environment, it will overheat. Yep. And that is every single camera that has ever been made will overheat if you get it hot enough. To
get this to overheat, you have to shoot to a point that is not normal.
Not normal, and that's the important bit.
That's a professional tool. You have to literally go to ridiculous lengths to make it overheat that you would never ever use in real world, then you're going to be fine.
And I don't think we can. I mean, obviously, bigger video cameras, take the FX9 for example. A lot of the reason that the camera is the size that it is because they have designed it around airflow and cooling, and they've done the same thing on this one, but this is a camera that's this big rather than this big, and so there's a lot less cooling potential in there, no matter how clever they get with their designs. And so I think these small cameras will always overheat more than bigger ones. It's just physics. It depends.
We've obviously got things like the Sigma FP, which have a very clever design for dissipating heat, and of course then we have the S1H, which is bigger than the S1 because of the fan. And this is this camera is still completely weather sealed. So and it's, as I say, I've not had any issue. I see what it's like when I go away, because I'm going to be shooting in very hot heat, but again, I'm not going to be filming constantly.
And also, these are all pre-production units still. The camera is still a good month or so away from shipping. And the people are talking about in the chat about a YouTuber called Dan Watson, who, by the way, I think does absolutely brilliant videos, saying that he has seen lots of overheating, but he's in, I think he's in Florida or somewhere like that, somewhere very hot anyway, and that he might just have a bad pre-production unit. I think he's done it in all sorts. I think he's done quite a lot of overheating modes.
I mean, you can also get it to overheat in S&Q mode, in the highest bitrate mode, in 4K, but again, it's like huge amounts of data, and after a long time, it will do it. You're not going to record a 35, 40-minute clip at 100, 120p, are you? Why? What are you filming? It sounds really weird, and I'm not going to watch it. It sounds boring as well. So, unless you're waiting for a monkey
some very art house film.
Actually, the only time you could possibly do that is, and I had this issue when I was using the F55 to shoot the Wonderlist, and what happened with the FS7 as well, is wildlife. And I was, like trying to get a shot of a monkey jumping out of a tree, and I was recording and recording. It was 4K 60, recording and recording, going through these cars. I'm like, just jump out the tree, you. And I knew that as soon as I stopped recording, he'd jump out the tree. And that's where I wish I had a buffered mode. I was using up so much data. That's the sort of situation you're going to have. That's the only time you're going to do that, and that's most likely you're going to be chucking away most of the stuff. But for that sort of situation, it'd be great to have a cache, but you don't tend to not have caches for high frame rates. This is a professional tool, so I would definitely disagree with that statement.
Okay, so to move on, Andy is asking about HD actually.
What's that?
So how is the HD quality? What's the highest bit rate in HD? I can't imagine, knowing you, Phil, that you actually even turned it into HD mode for your actual filming, did you?
Yep. Very last evening I had it before I gave it back, before I got it back again, I did some filming in HD 25, 50, 100, 200. And it looks great. I mean, it's HD though, isn't it? So it looks like HD to me. The HD 200, 240 does not look as good as the lower ones, as we'd expect, because there is pixel binning to achieve such a high frame rate. So it's not, you do see image artifacts. If you are shooting in that high frame rate, what tends to work better is not too much like hard lines and stuff. So nature works pretty well. Shallow depth field works pretty well.
Yeah, I was going to say
I shot quite a lot. Yeah, I mean, I did have some shots from Brighton that I was going to put in the main edit, and I didn't, but they'll be in my review, so you're going to see lots of it. It's the best 200, 240 I've seen in a camera like this. The only other one I've got is the Fuji X-T4, and it's way better than that. So it's very good. But the problem is, it's nowhere near as good as the 4K 120, which is perfect. The 4K 120 looks as good as the 25p. Is very rare to see something like that.
It's brilliant. Let's talk about not overheating, low light improvement. So this is the A7S we're talking about here. Low light is its thing. This is what made this camera famous in the first place. We all know that it's good in low light, but how good is it? Is it significantly better than the previous generations? Is it that little bit better? What do you reckon?
I didn't see anything that would call it significantly better. I've heard people say it's a stop better, but I haven't seen that. It was very much the same to me, which is good. It's still very good. The only thing I did find that we've had previous issues with is when you go to the crazy high ISOs, you could get this purple edging. That doesn't happen anymore, so that's gone. The only real thing about the low light performance is you've got to get it exposed. So there's no point having a high ISO shot and it's still underexposed, because then it would look appalling. You still got to get your exposure. So this is the issue I had in the Brighton shoot. I actually went back on a second day, because the first time I went, it was a clear sky, and because of the pandemic, the Brighton pier was closed. So the beach was very, very dark compared to when I went there 6 years ago. And I was like, oh my God, I'm having to go to 100,000 ISO to even get close to exposure. I'm still under. This is not going to look good. And one of the issues we have when we're shooting with the camera at high ISO, I mean, it does it in lower ISOs, we just don't see it as much, is you can't turn the noise reduction off. And that is not good, because, I mean, we want a little bit of natural, noise pattern, but when you're shooting in a really high ISO, it's like if it just has these artifacts, these little lines and things, which so we've got some frames that I sent you, which we can show in a second, because when I went down the second time, what I wanted to do, I wanted to wait for it to be cloudy, because then I would get some bounce light of the city. So I'd have something in the sky, so that it wouldn't just be black. You can see, so the shots, and if you look back at the video, the shots of the girl with the moon that was the black sky, and the guy doing a somersault, but you don't see much of the sky. But when I was filming the other direction towards the West Pier, it was so just completely black. I was like, these shots are just going to look terrible on YouTube. It's just going to be black banding, black banding, black banding. I knew, I saw it, so I knew I had to go back. But what I found very interesting was, and I didn't do this, I did one shot, I think, in ProRes RAW at night on that first shoot. I thought there's no point in me shooting ProRes RAW. It's not going to work for this. The whole point that Sony want is me to record internally. But I brought it along just to do a couple of tests. And I looked at it, I brought it into the end, and I went, oh my God, that is awful. The noise in ProRes RAW was mental. Mental. I was like, I've never seen anything like it. But because it didn't have the actual noise reduction, it cleaned up. It cleaned up amazingly. And that is key, because it's RAW, there's no noise reduction added. And I was able to actually, with Neat Video or DaVinci Resolve noise reduction is way faster and is great for just a little bit of noise. When you have a crazy amount of noise, yes, like Neat Video is much more surgical. The downside is, oh my God, it takes a long time to render. Especially if you're using ProRes RAW, it's like, there's one frame. Maybe I'll watch another episode of some TV show, and it might have done another frame by that point. And then it finishes it like after 6 days, that render of 10 seconds. And you go, bit too strong. Let's try it again. It's torture. So,
is that why you're late on your review? is that why you didn't make Embargo launch?
My advice is, when you shoot ProRes RAW and you need to use Neat Video, don't convert it to ProRes and then work with it. Then it's much less painful. So, I mean, if you've got those frames, you can see the comparison.
Yeah, should we bring them up and have a little look?
Yeah, so the first frame is 800 IS, it's 80,000, sorry, 80,000 ISO. And it's underexposed because it's dark. That's what happens. And you can't quite see it there. The next shot is the ProRes RAW, and you'll notice, well, you won't notice it here, but it's got this more colored noise. But when you go to the next frame, you'll see a 200% blow up.
So I don't know how well this is going to come across on the stream, obviously, because we're applying so much compression to it. Hopefully we'll see it.
When you look at the 400%, and you'll see it in my review as well, so I go over all of this, and you'll see in the 400% blow up. And don't forget, this is a very early pre-production as well of ProRes RAW, so it's probably going to end up being better quality anyway. But if you look at the internal, it's got this the edges are no good, and you have a lot of, that's what happens with the noise reduction in camera when you go high ISOs. The edges go, and it's all sort of like fuzzy, which is nasty. And so you go to the next slide, and then you'll see, hopefully, so then you see some Neat Video applied. And it's quite heavy because it was a lot of noise, the Neat Video that I used. And then you'll see what I then did, graded it darker and added film convert grain to make it look less plasticky. But that's the problem is, if I had more time, good thing is I can replace my Vimeo version. I'm going to go back and do some more work on the night stuff. Not new shots, but just more work and just be a bit more, because I say it takes a lot of time, because I want it to be really perfect. And I know I can get amazing results with it. It's just the time that it takes to render. At the end of the day, I had to get this video to Sony. I was like, if you actually look at how many versions I made maybe 40 to 50 exports and uploaded them all to YouTube. And they're still on there on my YouTube. You can't see them because they're unlisted. And just to see, they looked okay on my computer, but when I got them onto YouTube, it was like, it's got worse. The banding was like, it was like that episode of Game of Thrones where it was so dark and you couldn't see anything. It was like the banding was like, there was like massive chunks of one color. It was like, or one shade. It's like, that's ridiculous. And you put it onto Vimeo, which is 10-bit, and it didn't have any of that. And I tried H.264, I tried multi-passing, I tried uploading in every variety, every bit rate. And eventually what I had to do was brighten up the shot a lot to make it less dark, which isn't what I wanted. So you'll see a different look. So the Vimeo version has darker shots at night compared to the YouTube version.
So for people out there that want to actually look at your stuff to try and judge the image quality as best as possible, presumably downloading from Vimeo the original file is the way to go, right?
Yeah, but I wouldn't use the word judge, because it's like same with the ProRes RAW video. You can only judge an image by seeing it untouched natively. That's, and I haven't shared anything. I can't show any ProRes RAW, but I'm happy to share some native clips from internal, and I'll do that when I publish my review. I'll put them on Dropbox or something, and you can have a look, and you can see just how good they are. So, but it's and the judging is also from how you're using the camera. But you can look, everything is subjective. You don't judge the colors of a camera based upon what I've done, because that's not the colors of the camera. That's me. That's me and my skills as a colorist. I need an Ollie Kenshington to do it, but he was too busy. He was too busy, and Canon wouldn't let him touch a Sony.
Yeah, he comes up in a rash if he touches a Sony.
He does, yeah. He had hair, then he touched a Sony.
Right, let's crack on with some more questions, because we're nearing the hour point now. So Max has asked, hi Philip, does it bother you that the A7s III lacks some professional assist tools and that it does not support recording in ProRes? So by professional assist tools, I'm assuming he's talking about waveform, false color, things like that.
Yeah, waveform is the only one I really miss. The ProRes not bothered at all, because ProRes is, don't forget, it's a very old codec. The XAV-ECI, it's like on the FX9. I love XAV-ECI. It's an efficient modern codec. So
the main reason that we all want ProRes and things is so that we've got a high quality intra-frame codec that's easy to edit in most pieces of software. And if an internal codec gets as good as that and gets as easy to use as ProRes, then fine, we don't need ProRes.
There's lots of things which are missing from this camera that I would like that, say, an FX9 has, and things like the waveform and other tools, ability to load up LUTs, other bits and pieces. And there's still some quirks which irritate me. The biggest one by far, apart from the animal eye autofocus in video, which doesn't work. The animal autofocus in the new Canons is like mind blowing, and I'm hoping that Sony are looking at that and going, we need to do better. But the biggest issue I have with the camera is one of the things that really been bothering me about the Sony mirrorless cameras for years is the HDMI out in 4K is always clean. Now that's fine if you're using a recorder, but I actually like to have my display on there to see what the hell I'm doing. Know that I'm recording, everything, all the basic stuff that you want. So we've never had that, only in HD. We now have it, but it kills, not just makes it black, it kills the LCD and EVF, which is fine, you say, because you have a monitor. And I say, no, it's not fine, because one of the best things about this camera, new features, is the touch screen focus tracking is amazing. And you lose it. When you have on-screen display turned on in 4K, you no longer have the ability to do touch focus. And there's no ability to move a cursor around to select anything either. So I have told them it's quite an urgent thing that you guys need to have a mirror option. Absolutely. So we can see it on that screen, because you have literally, you've lost one of the best features of this camera. That focus is like glue. It's amazing. And
it is a really important point, actually. The first time you explained it to me, I sort of went, well, why do you need to, you've got the monitor, and then as soon as that sort of twigged in my head, oh yeah, how good would that be if you were using it in the same way as you were using it with an EVF, where you're actually looking at it through one thing and then you're controlling the focus with a touchscreen on the other thing.
Yeah.
If it got working like that with an external monitor, it'd be so useful.
I shot both of those pieces, almost entirely. I would say entirely in autofocus touchscreen, because why wouldn't you? You touch what you want. But I had a monitor which was clean, but I was looking at my LCD screen most of the time because I needed to watch the focus. I needed to watch that it was actually tracking and wasn't losing it. I have this lovely 7-inch screen from Small HD on there, and I was looking down at this little screen, which is ridiculous. That's not why I want to use a monitor, and I want to be able to see it. So, and that was how I was getting focus. So if I was going to not have that. If I wanted to have my on-screen display, I would have pretty much have had to go to manual focus, apart from when I wanted to follow people, because that's when the tracking, you can move a selectable focus point, but it's not going to track. It's just going to keep that area in focus. So if you want the tracking other than for faces, you've got to have on-screen display turned off on the external monitor. So yeah, that's the biggest negative.
Because of the touchscreen, it's got to have the touchscreen enabled.
Yeah, because we've had touch focus on the this is the first time we have touch tracking. Actually, no, the A9 II and I think the ZV-1 has it as well. So they're the other ones. First time we've had it in the A7 series, and it's what I fell in love with the 1DX Mark II. That I did a piece in Brighton, coincidentally, and I was getting focus again. And that was more important with that camera, because that has no help tools. It's got no peaking. It had no punch in when recording. It was difficult. But I was literally just using the screen and getting focus. And so it's a wonderful system. So it needs to be used.
I think a good, interesting talking about point to close up with maybe is about the FX9 and how this camera relates to the more established video tools and that people might have. I mean, there's a huge amount of people that for this is going to be pushing themselves in terms of how much they're willing to be prepared to pay for a camera. This is going to be their A camera. And that's absolutely fine. This is going to do an incredibly good job for that, for sort of small production companies, people like that. There's also a huge amount of people, though, that have cameras like the FX9 or the FS7 potentially, that would be looking at this as primarily a B camera. And I think for that, this is a cracking camera for that, right? I mean, that's the situation you're in.
Yeah, if you're looking for a second camera to go with it that isn't the same camera as the first one, because obviously the best B camera for an FX9 is an FX9, because they match pretty well. But
well, at least you'd hope they would.
Yeah, I mean, if they don't, you need to speak to Sony about it. But this matches, as I say, so well. I mean, there's the only thing, the key thing, we're talking about professional tools. Yeah, we are missing things. We're missing, things like SDI, lockable. We have a full-size HDMI, which it's much better, but it's still a consumer connection because it's not lockable. Yeah, you can use clamp locks, and you should, without question. We do have XLRs with the module, which I'm actually using right now on my A7s III. So we have that, but we are missing a few things like time coding. We're missing shutter angle. We don't have DCI 4K. Mind you, we don't have any FX9 yet. It's coming soon though. So there's definite things about it. Actually, one thing that really irritates me, Carl, and this is with every single flippy bloody screen. Sorry, but it really irritates me. is right. Okay, let's unplug this for a sec. So flippy screen is not just for people going, hey, look at me, look at me. It's about getting into angles and trying to get your camera into a position to get a shot that you and see the screen. Because, if you've got a screen just on the back, you can't. So imagine I'm sure let's see it, shooting low like this. OK, and so my screen is like that. Imagine I am the camera. Actually, if I turn it on, you'll see what happens. That's probably the best way of doing it. Let me bring my exposure down. That's what I'm doing. Oh my god, I've never been at F10 on a camera. Right. I need you to see the screen in some way. Then if it's going to focus on it.
Focus, I think, is the main thing. There we go.
There it is. Okay. Yep. Right. So it's fine if it's like that, but say you're above it and you just need to tilt it slightly. Bing. It's upside down. I hate that. So it needs a manual override. That's what a professional camera, my FX9 and the Canons, and they all have a manual switch for mirroring. So
I used to use it all the time on the FS5. So that had a really convenient switch right on the top of the monitor where I just force it out of auto, turn off auto, and literally just use it with that switch that's right there on the monitor.
This is software.
Yeah.
I don't need a physical switch. You just need software so you can program a button or in just selecting menu to not have auto mirroring. and auto flipping. That's all it needs, because I have found it quite frustrating. And everyone, the S1H does it, the EOS Rs do it, they all do it. And I'm like, this is interesting. How come nobody? And I googled it, and nobody was really complaining about it. So I'm thinking, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm the only one who ever shoots at these awkward angles. Because when you're shooting cats,
I think, to be honest, a lot of people are just happy to have a flip out screen now on one of these cameras. So I think it will take a little bit.
The way that it works is we complain until we get something, and then we complain about what they give us. Right, that's the way. That's the way it should work. We should never be happy. If we're happy, then they'll never make things better.
Okay, Fenderman is asking, is it right that only the 4K XAVCI 120p S&Q is missing if you're using SD cards? So this is about the new CF Express Type A media, and which recording modes require you to use those cards, and you can't just do with a fast V90 SD card.
There's two modes.
There's two, isn't there? It's all in S&Q.
It's S&Q, and it's all in XAVCI SI.
Yeah.
So if you're in XAVCI SI 200, 240, the All-I 200, 240 in HD requires CFE. But if you just go to normal XAVCS, you're fine. And it's also at 100, 120p S&Q in the All-I will require that. But if you just go into normal, no, there isn't one. This only goes up to what does it go up to? I can't even remember. Let me have a look.
In 4K.
Yeah, because I mean, you've seen that. I sent a document with all the things, and it did my head in. I calculated about 700 permutations of bit rates at different options, because there's so many options.
A huge amount in normal recording, and then you open up S&Q mode on any spreadsheet that has all the data sheets on it, and your brain just starts to my things.
You see the menu? No, I was trying to show you my camera. It will do it there now. So, I mean, we laughed about this earlier. You can be in S&Q mode at 100p at 100 frames per second, which is like, okay, cool. But you could record as your base rate as 100p and then shoot lower. So this is where all the permutations come in, which is if you want to shoot as like an Ang Lee type thing, where you want to shoot as 120p, whatever it is, as your frame rate as a movie, and you want to undercrank. It's just weird, all these frame rates. So if we go to the the normal XAVCI, and then go to movie settings. Yeah, so the I, there is no 100p, the All-I, or 120p. The only way you can get 120p is in S&Q mode. And then you need to have the if I go into S&Q mode now,
cards.
It will have that.
Yep.
Okay. So, but you can simply just go to, if you go to HS, for example, see if it does it on that. Am I in S&Q? Yes, but I'm not in. Oh, they reset all my menus when I gave them the camera back. How dare they? Right. So if we go into 100 frames and then a base rate of 50. I don't want 50. I want it as 25, but it doesn't really matter. Right, but it won't. We can still record high frame rate 4K. So it's just the I mode. It's the I mode in 4K 100, 120, and the XAVCS, the I mode in HD 200, 240. So there's no frame rate that you can't record onto if you're just using a V90 card. Most of the cards you can use V60. Some will need V90, and you do need, it actually has to say V60 on it. You can have cards which are as fast as a V60, but unless it says V60 or V90 on it, it won't take them, which is a bit annoying. So you just need to make sure for that. Especially the V90 is the really crucial one. The V90 is the crucial one for the high frame rates. And I've got loads of Lexars and even Sony cards, which are technically more than enough, but because they're not classified, because they're older cars, where before the classification happened, they're not accepted, which is annoying. And all the V90 is, it means the minimum will always be 90.
Yes.
That's all it is. So
But it's hugely important spec, because if you're writing video and then the speed of the card is varying too far down, you know, you're ruined.
If it stops recording, I'm fine with that. At least let me use all my cards, because I've had to buy loads of new cards, which is very annoying.
Sure.
Talking about new cards, I can just this will make you laugh. So I have quite a lot of cards for my. Is it this one or is it this one? Where's all my Sony cards? Oh, I don't know. But I've just got an EOS R, as you know, and I've got some media.
I do.
EOS R5, sorry, and I've got my media. Almost 2 terabytes.
Wise ones.
Woohoo! They're wise cards for wise filming, and it's a lot of money that. And that's going to give me about 7.5 minutes of recording. No, I'm joking. It's going to be more than that. But my concern is like, data rates. So I know when I'm going to be filming away, I am not going to be keeping my native files. So I am going to be converting to ProRes and chucking them away, just because the bitrate's going to be too high to keep a lot of them.
Yeah.
Especially on the high frame rates, because it's like 1800 megabits a second or something.
Yeah, but that's the thing with the Canon, is that it really ramps up the data rates, which is good for quality, but for storage and practicality reasons, oh god, blimey, that's a lot to do.
Yeah, there's my Sony one. So I've actually do like the Pro grades are good. The V90 Pro grades, they've been very, very reliable for me and pretty affordable. So yeah, if you, and their V60s are great for just normal recording. So it's just to save some money.
There's lots of great media types nowadays.
What's really nice about when I heard that it was going to be new media with this camera, I was like, no, great. Last thing I want is buy loads of new cards, and these are expensive, these new cards. But they've introduced it in such a nice way, in that it's a dual slot, dual media camera, so you don't have to buy the new cards. And as we just said, there's no recording frame rate that is closed off until you buy these cards. And until
do you want to just show the card slots on the camera? We probably won't be able to see it very clearly, but there's a lot there. We did see some people online saying that there was 4 card slots. Like, no, there's 2 card slots.
Technically there is 4, but you can't have them at the same time. So
okay.
in a way, it's so. What's a bit strange is they face different ways with the labels. Hang on, so let me just get them in there. So you'll just about see them. So there, coming in. Come on, I've got the autofocus probably too slow. So that is that's the SD card. I think I can't quite tell. I haven't got my glasses on. And then, but they're in the same slot. So it's like, just think of like a micro SD and a normal SD. It's a little bit like that in a way, a little bit like that. But yeah, so we got the normal one here, which so it's label out and then label in, and then we have the CFE Type A, which are very similar looking to like Nintendo DS cards. So you could maybe
just a bit thinner than SD cards, right? Yeah. Play Mario on your A7s III.
Yeah, these are the tough cards. So one of my tests for my review, which I'm going to do later, is I'm going to eat this and see if it comes out the other end and still works. So we should... I'm not really, don't worry. It's quite small.
Maybe that's why the review isn't done yet. You're still waiting.
Hasn't come through yet. Oh.
Okay, so I think we should probably wrap up here. I think the last talking point that I want to get onto is a little bit more general about the camera. I think it's a camera that is very tempting to get into all the little nuts and bolts as to how it works, because there's so much going on under the hood. There's so many different settings, so many different record modes, loads of new things to talk about. But I think the big point here is how it has improved the A7 lineup for Sony and how it compares to what else is on the market, both bigger cameras and other mirrorless cameras. And where do you think this sits now?
With regard to the other mirrorless cameras?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I haven't even... The R5 is still in the box. I've not even opened it yet. So sure. I know about what people are saying. I know what people are saying in reviews. And until I've used it myself, I don't have an opinion. So we shall see. I have an S1H, and it's an amazing camera. But Autofocus. We know autofocus, and there's no full frame 50p 60p, but it's an amazing image. If it had that, it would be so good. But it's still a very good camera. This for me, this is the top of the pile. It may not have the flagship, the high flashy 8K, 6K, or whatever. This does perfect 4K, and it does it up to 120p, and it has astonishing autofocus. And the only, if you're looking at it as a hybrid, then it's and you shoot a lot of photos, then it's not ideal because it's only 12 megapixels. And if I have a minimum these days of at least 100 megapixels for my Instagram photos. So
you don't take a photo of your cats unless it's 100 megapixels. Unless
I can crop into their eyes and see myself because it's a cat selfie, then I'm not going to use it. So yeah, the stills are lovely. And what's quite nice as well is because they are smaller, and anybody who's used like an A7R4 and even an A7s III, if you're taking a lot of photos, is you have to wait for the photos to write to the card before you can shoot any video. And if you're using an A7R4, that can be really painful. There's no weight on this camera because they're 12 megapixels. So you can be rattling off stills and then boom, hit record. That's great. And it's nice that you can have separate settings for your stills and video mode. So whereas before, if you're shooting S-Log3, your stills JPEGs will be S-Log3, and you send that to your phone. You try grading S-Log3 on your phone. It's not much fun. So it's nice that you can have a different profile.
Absolutely.
There's a lot going for it, yeah.
There's a huge amount going for it. I think you're right if you want a hybrid camera, and there's a lot of people that are looking at these products that is in stills cameras that shoot video, because that is what we're talking about here. Lots of people are looking at that as really they want to buy like a cinema camera, but they can't quite get to that price point. And for that, this is brilliant. But there's also lots of other good options as well. But this, I think, is probably, if not at the top, very near the top. I think the S1H is also a great camera for that. I think for people who are looking for and want this camera because they straddle both worlds between stills and video, this probably leans too far towards the video and not towards the stills, and they might want to go for something else. I think, though, that a lot of people are looking for a broadcast camera in this small little body. And if that's what you really want out of these small cameras, this just blows everything else out of the water. It's brilliant for that sort of work.
I mean, if we're going to speculate a little bit, clearly Sony are now, this is their video standard, 10-bit internal recording. So I would be shocked if we didn't see an A7 IV come out with a 24 megapixel sensor with 10-bit recording that topped out at 60p. That's what I could very, very imagine happening, which would be great for people who want to shoot both. So yeah, I mean, because it would require more processing, and then we will get into heating issues, because that's what kills the R6 and the R5 is the downsampling, is the processing. And there is a tiny bit of downsampling with the camera of the A7s III, because it's like 4,200 pixels wide, and it downsamples it to 3,840. But the processing is so minimal, so it doesn't have these same issues. So I think it's one of the reasons, apart from the low light and other things, why they didn't put in a 6K sensor for super sampling down to 4K, because of heat issues.
Yep. They wanted to be able to get the best quality 4K, best quality low light, and
they wanted 100p. They wanted 100p. They wanted 120p, and the only way I'm sure they could have done it was to keep that sensor down to that perfect size. And this sensor's amazing. The rolling shutter. We can't forget how good that is. Locke termed, Locke, he termed a great term for it, which I won't say because we're not in a post 9 p.m. slot, rolling shutter with a different letter for you. And it was. And I've done tests, and it's amazing. I'm actually going to do a little FX9 versus A7s III rolling shutter test just to see.
That'll be interesting.
But for just normal filming, and it's only for whip pans, you start to see it, and you want your whip pan to do that anyway, don't you? Because you want to blend it in. And it's not just for fast movement; it's just for handheld. There's no micro jitters or anything like that, and it helps the IBIS. It helps all of this by having a much faster readout on the sensor to really reduce that rolling shutter.
So rolling shutter's been improved, dynamic range has been improved, color's been improved, frame rates have been improved, codecs have been improved. It's
Battery's
just
been improved.
Everything is better. Absolutely.
Isn't that what we want in life? Everything to be better. We've complained enough about, Sony falling behind, and they have appeared to have listened to us in pretty much every respect, which is like, when I was told the specs the first time I saw the camera, and it was going through, he was telling me this, and I went, it was telling me the frame rate. I was like, huh? Yeah, it's going to crop that, isn't it? And he went, no, but the autofocus isn't going to work. And he went, no, it still works. And he kept going through everything. And the end of it, I went, I don't understand. It's not been crippled at all. What are you doing here? That's literally what I was going. I don't understand why this is so good.
Yeah.
I was shocked because I honestly thought that something would be held back, and it doesn't seem to be.
I think we were all surprised at just how much this camera can do. So yeah, I think that's a really good place to finish there. Thank you so much for your time, Phil. It's been an absolute pleasure having you, as always. I'll let you get back to your amazing pile of editing that I'm sure you've got to do.
It'll be worth it. It's almost done. It's almost done. It'll be done today.
It will be worth it. I'm very much looking forward to watching it.
And there's lots of cameos in it which people are going to enjoy. It's a lot of fun.
I will be waiting with bated breath for you to release it, as I'm sure most of the people watching will be. Thank you so much, everyone who watched this, and for everyone who was joining in there on the chat and leaving your comments. There's been some amazing questions come through. I'm sorry that we didn't get a chance to answer all of them. If we did, we would be here talking for 5 hours, and Bloom's got to get himself off on holiday. He deserves it. If any of you haven't placed a pre-order for this camera yet, just head over to proav.co.uk and pre-order from ProAV there, or of course just talk to our sales team, and we can get you in that queue, because I think this is going to be an incredibly popular camera. And don't forget about some of those offers that Sony have got going on for pre-orders, that money off GM lenses. If you're looking at buying GM lenses as well, make sure you take advantage of that, because that can add up to a huge amount of money. £300 off each lens that you buy, up to 3 lenses. Talk to our sales team if you're interested in that, and all the details are of course up online, but that is a brilliant offer. But for now, thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for joining me, Phil, and I'll see you all in the next one.
Perfect wireless audio solution for content creators and filmmakers. Thanks to a 2.4 GHz transmission, XS Wireless Digital is a truly plug-and-play system that allows you to upgrade your in-camera audio with one-button operation. With a variety of configurations to choose from, this entry point into the world of wireless will improve your workflow and will expand the possibilities of how you capture audio for your video. For more information, visit sennheiser.com/XSWD. The MKE600 is a shotgun microphone ideal for professional video camera applications. Maximal rejection of ambient side noises thanks to pronounced directivity. And because the MKE600 has a very good suppression of structure-borne noise, it makes one of the most versatile all-round shotgun microphones on the market.
The new Super 35 sensor that Canon have introduced with the C300 Mark III is quite a big step up from other S35 sensors that they have created before. From the body and the flexibility that gives us in terms of the expansion packs and the interchangeable mount, to the sensor with its increased dynamic range for tackling scenes that possibly we couldn't have tackled or captured faithfully before, I can get more out of this camera. My money goes further. It's as simple as that from a business standpoint. From a creative point of view, it's unquestionably unlocking more creative avenues for us as filmmakers.
A7s Wireless Digital is the perfect wireless audio solution for content creators and filmmakers. Thanks to a 2.4 GHz transmission, XS Wireless Digital is a truly plug-and-play system that allows you to upgrade your in-camera audio with one-button operation. With a variety of configurations to choose from, this entry point into the world of wireless will improve your workflow and will expand the possibilities of how you capture audio for your video. For more information, visit sennheiser.com/xswd. The MKE600 is a shotgun microphone ideal for professional video camera applications. Maximal rejection of ambient side noises thanks to pronounced directivity. And because the MKE600 has a very good suppression of structure-borne noise, it makes one of the most versatile all-round shotgun microphones on the market.
The new Super 35 sensor that Canon have introduced with the C300 Mark III is quite a big step up from other S35 sensors that they have created before. From the body and the flexibility that gives us in terms of the expansion packs and the interchangeable mount, to the sensor with its increased dynamic range for tackling scenes that possibly we couldn't have tackled or captured faithfully before, I can get more out of this camera. My money goes further. It's as simple as that from a business standpoint. from a creative point of view, it's unquestionably unlocking more creative avenues for us as filmmakers.